Recently, Francesca Fiorentini asked us at TYT to take her podcast, Habituation Room, off the network. And we happily agreed to that. And today, I'm going a little further, and I'm going to take Francesca off the network entirely.
Okay, that's interesting to me because I didn't know that. So apparently, and this sort of adds to it, Francesca requested that her specific show be taken off the TYT network before Cenk fired her. So let me see if I get this straight. She doesn't want her show to contribute to the TYT network, but she continues to want access to the TYT network despite engaging, in ad hominem attacks against Cenk. Okay, so that's interesting. We're going to continue to listen here, and then I'll give my full thoughts. I didn't know that part.
So you won't see her on any of the TYT shows going forward. So I want you guys to know why I'm doing that and how this whole situation isn't really about Francesca. It's about TYT, our community, and what we stand for. And so we're for open minds and open hearts. And so I want all of you to know that, and I want to build a community that believes in that and invites people in that believe in the same things. And
look, very quickly, if you want to watch the full video, you can watch the full video. So if me interrupting the video annoys you, I mean, this is a commentary video. But very quickly, what's interesting about Cenk and what I've noticed, and I have commented on the video, is that Cenk it's not just about trying to be a good guy, and whether or not you think Cenk is a good guy is your own business, but he's trying his best here to do some damage control because he wants to be seen as the good guy. Right now, he's gonna give his reasons for why he fired Francesca, but this is sort of like a plea to the viewers, right? That this is almost like a please. I'm not the bad guy here. It's almost like he's fully aware of how Francesca is gonna try and spin this, and obviously the peripheral shows, around TYT, Majority Report, the National Rational or whatever, all of these shows, Cenk is aware, that they're gonna most likely jump on the bandwagon and try and support Francesca or just attack or assault TYT. So he's trying to do some damage control here, but I don't think this is necessarily useful. But okay, we'll continue listening, I guess.
by the way, if you don't believe in the same things and you say, no, I have a strict ideology and I have no open mind about that, no problem. There are tons of shows out there for you guys. So first of all, we've had some disagreements. I certainly have with some of the far left, but I think they've been relatively small. But if you think that they've been large, no problem. So they've been around the issue of crime. Did crime rise between 2019 and 2023? Well, that's a fact.
All right, we're gonna skip ahead just a little bit so we get to the disagreement. Okay, so we're just gonna skip ahead because he's gonna show some clips as to why he fired Francesca. So let's just take a look here. He starts on the trans issues.
I'm a big Messi fan, but let me just
answer my question. Would you allow him, if he said I'm a woman, to play in the American women's national team?
You're using the wrong pronoun
yes, right now. Hell yeah, are you kidding me?
Transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports.
Your argument is really bad on this, and you're out of your depth. You're correct that trans women should be able to compete in women's sports, but your argument for it is just scientifically and factually incorrect. I'm actually not bad about this. I'm 100% right on this. I don't give a the scientific explanations. People, if they identify as a woman, get to compete in sports. If that's not fair in the short term for a variety of little competitions, I don't give a
And I mean, my goodness.
Just very quickly, it's funny to hear Emma, say something like, I don't care about the scientific explanations, when a lot of these leftist channels are also happen to be, atheist channels. They usually don't believe in God, or they ridicule the idea of God, or at least they ridicule the influence of religion in politics. And here Emma is saying, I don't give a crap about these scientific explanations, when ordinarily, they're walking around with the banner of science and ridiculing anyone that maybe doesn't care, about scientific explanations for A, B, and C. So it's a little funny to hear, but also the idea that, people, individuals, families, communities should give up their own ambitions and goals and and aspirations to pursue either a career in sports or something peripheral to sports where physical activity is required, so that the trans community can continue to be normalized is about as selfish as you can get, because what you're telling people, and I think this is one of the reasons why the left is just, it's continuing to get crazy, because what the left is basically telling people, okay, what the left is basically telling people is, I don't care about your individual struggle. I don't care about your family's struggle, because you are a necessary sacrifice, and the only noble thing for you to do is to sacrifice yourself and your own goals for the betterment of society. Basically, the left wants everyone else to be a martyr for these fringe groups so that they can become normalized. Like, understand, like, this is just common sense. Everyone has a single life to live. Anyone asking you to sacrifice that single life so that some other people who you've never even met, who you don't necessarily agree with, can become normalized, or their civil rights can be protected, whatever that means. What does she mean by their civil, like, that's what she's trying to get at, right? That their civil rights need to be protected, that we shouldn't sacrifice, you know, a group's civil rights for sports, for fairness in sports. What does she mean by their civil rights? We're talking about people who are quite literally entering sports, who will compete in male sports. They'll do very poorly, or they won't stand out. Then they'll switch over to women's sports and they'll set records. And Emma is sitting here pretending as if that's not, at least some of these individuals are not taking advantage of that you know, loophole in the system. But secondly, I mean, what does that mean to protect civil rights? Trans people can and can't participate in the opposite, you know, sexist sports. Maybe it's a civil rights issue, but it's also a societal issue. And there's plenty of people who don't necessarily agree with transgenderism as actually as a normal state. They believe maybe it's a mental illness or something else. If a schizophrenic right now, if a group of schizophrenics right now said, hey, we believe in A, B, and C, and we don't want to take our medication to sort of fight off any of our hallucinations, is that not their civil rights? Oh wait, I forgot, because, you know, Emma believes in science. When it comes to other mental illnesses like science, excuse me, when it comes to other mental illnesses like schizophrenia, for example, Emma believes all of the science there. But when it comes to transgenderism, she doesn't care about the science. All right, let's continue to listen.
Gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on.
And by the way, if you're curious as to why Cenk is showing, you know, these statistics when it comes to Francesca, I think among other things, what he's trying to show is that the side of the left that he's trying to battle is the side of the left that only cares about theory and not practice, that only cares about theory and not, you know, strategy on the ground. All right. Cenk is trying to, or at least what I think he's trying to make an argument here for, is that he is trying to say that, listen, I am fighting, or we should be fighting rather, for the best material, you know, benefits for human beings, right, across America. And how do you get people's material, their best material interests? You get them from voting. You get them from, you know, winning elections. You get them from passing legislation. So as an example, you know, Medicare for all, something we have in Canada, right? Healthcare for all. You need that to pass in Congress, and then in the Senate, and then signed by the president. And how do you get that done? Well, presumably you're going to need enough Democrats, or at least left-wing individuals, who prioritize that above something else and get it passed. But before you do that, you need to gain support for it. So what is the best way of gaining support? The best way of gaining support for an idea is to have an idea that affects everyone. But when you have an idea that affects everyone, that most of the country supports, and then at the same time you tangle it up with an idea that most of the country disagrees, you create deadlock. Like the fact that it's the left, and this is so frustrating. The fact that it's the left that is pushing healthcare for all, while at the same time pushing the transgenderism issue, is what's causing them to lose. And we've heard this before, but you have to wonder, is the left intentionally trying to lose? Because it's like they can't, like the left is incapable of prioritizing. They can't say, look, sure, if you believe transgenderism issue is a very important issue, sure, let's have that fight after we win the war of healthcare. Let's have that fight after we ensure that every single American in this country, including transgender individuals, that would be able to benefit from healthcare. But let's make sure that every single person in this country gets healthcare for all. And then once we agree on that, once we get that done, then we can have these disagreements about all of these other issues that are secondary. But instead, they don't want to do that. Instead of creating and collaborating and creating a sort of coalition of conservatives, of liberals, of independents, who all, majority of which, support healthcare for all, what they want to do instead is they want to say, nope, unless you agree to something that 18% of the country agrees with, then and only then are we going to give you healthcare for all. They are sabotaging themselves. And I think that's what Cenk is saying. He's saying, listen, we have some very important issues we need to discuss. Healthcare for all being one of them, war being another one, and if you believe in it, climate change, which I do, climate change being a third. I would argue that those three things are the most important issues of our era, of our day. And until we address those things, and ironically, I think maybe with the exception of climate change, war and healthcare, the majority of Americans, support healthcare for all, and the majority of Americans don't necessarily want war overseas. But instead of addressing those things which the majority of Americans want and can't get because both sides, especially the left, and I blame the left for this. This is where my anger comes as well, because the left is unable to tangle the issues. The word intersectionality is the problem here. I used to think that was a good word. I used to think, oh yeah, that's true. A lot of things are connected. But here's the problem: human beings can only solve problems one at a time or one part in time. We can't solve everything at the same time. If you try and solve everything at the same time, you're gonna get nothing done. It's like when you clean your house, you don't try and do the dishes and, the vacuuming at the same time. It's not going to happen. You have to choose one or the other before you move on to the other. It doesn't mean if you wash the dishes first, you're not going to vacuum the house. But the left can't understand that. For the left, everything has to be done right now. Everything has to be tangled right now. Hey, we're going to get a politician up there who's going to try and persuade Americans to vote for healthcare for all. Well, he better mention, or she better mention, that they also need to support trans issues, or we're not going to support him. And the second this politician opens up their mouth about trans issues or some other incredibly controversial issue, they've just lost support for healthcare for all, because now there's a great majority of the country that feels very strongly about transgenderism issues, and they're immediately going to stop listening. To the left, stop prioritizing social issues over economic issues, over health issues. They don't get this. Francesca doesn't get this, and Emma sure as hell, and the majority report don't get this. Despite Sam being this supposedly great debater and intelligent guy, he doesn't seem to get it. Let's continue.
Anything.
Because the societal interest of including trans people in society trumps stupid competition. Full stop. So I'm right about this.
The societal interest trumps stupid competition. What about the societal interests of climate change? What about the societal interest of healthcare, like I just said? Does that not trump transgender issues, who I think globally make up less than 4% of the population? In the United States, they make up less than 1% of the population. So let's see. This is leftist logic, right? The societal interests: healthcare for all, stopping war, addressing climate change. Let's pick one of those issues and go all in on one of those issues, so at least we get something done. But nope, we can't do that. Why? Because the societal issues of transgender issues trumps all of those things in Emma's mind. Whether it's sports, like this is just a red herring, right? This is just a straw man argument that she's trying to paint sports as the issue here. It's not sports. Sports is just a symptom of the problem, sweet little Emma.
You're wrong about this.
You'd let Lionel Messi play in the women's national football team and destroy
Hell yeah,
women's football
welcome.
forever. You'd let Usain
it'd be
Bolt.
very difficult
Hang on,
to get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to.
Like, look at her speak, and look how unreasonable she's trying to be. The majority of Americans hear this individual speak, and they think, yeah, I can't listen to anything she says. It also poisons the well. Anything else that comes out of her mouth, they're immediately going to ridicule. Why? Because of ethos. This is very simple. So if you're aware of the way logic and persuasion works, there's three things. There's three ways human beings persuade others. There's pathos, there's logos, and there's ethos. So logos is obviously a logical argument. Pathos is an emotional argument. It's a relatability argument. Politicians are famous for pathos. It's arguably also one of the most, effective ways of getting someone to agree with you. And then there's ethos. And the reason why ethos is important here is because ethos is your authority. Ethos is more or less how much trust does someone put into your word. So if you're someone who's, let's say, for example, if I were to cite, well, Steve, if I'm talking about something in science and I say, well, Stephen Hawking said A, B, and C, all of a sudden, anything that comes out of my mouth carries more authority and more credibility with it. Why? Because I referenced that, hey, I'm citing Stephen Hawking here, and people are aware that Stephen Hawking is a very, very intelligent and accomplished physicist. So they're more likely to listen to me. So this is a problem of ethos, right? When the majority of Americans or the majority of human beings listen to this woman make these incredibly unreasonable statements, right? It's going to poison the well, because now they're going to think she's just not a credible individual. So if she ever does go out there and make a point about climate change or healthcare or war or anything else, they're going to say, isn't this the same crazy lady that was talking about transgender issues and is completely unreasonable? Isn't that her? They're immediately going to plug her out. And any sort of news station, YouTube channel, whatever that has her on is going to share her lack of credibility going forward with a great chunk of Americans. Now, there's certain people that's going to love her for saying this, and that's the crowd that she's trying to shepherd. Because for Francesca, she wants money, just like all these YouTubers do. They're trying to get money, whereas Cenk, look, Cenk is obviously trying to get money as well. He has a network to run. But at the same time, I think he's trying to be strategic. He's actually trying to get something done. It's not just commentary for him. All right, let's go back and listen to this psycho.
This.
You'd let Lionel Messi play in the women's national football team and destroy
Hell yeah,
women's football
welcome.
forever. You'd let Usain
it'd be
Bolt.
very difficult
Hang on,
to get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to do a little checklist here. You'd let Usain Bolt compete as a sprinter in the American women's Olympic team.
Yes.
Okay. You would
Yes.
let Floyd Mayweather compete as a boxer in the women's American boxing
Yeah.
team.
Opposing them in women's sports. You get 67% of Democrats, so 2/3 there. You get 64% of independents, so you get about 2/3 there.
So I'm right about this. You're wrong about this.
Okay, generally speaking, if you want to say that you're right about something, sure, everybody has their own opinions and it's their opinions. That's why they think that they're right. It's another thing to say that you speak for the left. As you just saw there, 67% of Democrats have a position that is actually to the right of mine. I say that trans girls should be allowed to play in girls' sports in high school. 67% of Democrats say no, not allowed in any women's sports. So I'll work on my Democratic brothers and sisters, and I'll try to get them to my position on that. Nothing wrong with disagreements. And if Emma, Francesca, and others can convince 79% of the nation that is opposed to that to come over to that side, fantastic, happy to have it, okay? So I think where the issue comes in is when things get personal. So we got 3 rules, generally speaking, on air here at TYT that are relatively bright lines. So one is, and I say relative, I'll explain that in a second. One is no lying, 2 is no threats of physical violence, and number 3 is don't denigrate personally the other hosts in the network over and over and over again. And I say relatively bright lines because it should be relatively easy to follow, but I get that people have disagreements about, hey.
So very quickly, from what that sounds like to me is that Cenk is talking about workplace harassment. Now I get that this is a network, but I need you to really understand that the part of don't denigrate other hosts online. They work, like, yeah, she works for Cenk, but they work together. So you know what that means? That means that when she gets on whether it's her show or not, her show is part of the TYT network, but she also gets on other shows in the TYT network as well, like the Damage Report, which we're going to get to. When you get on the TYT network and you start insulting Cenk and ridiculing him and quite literally throwing ad hominem attacks, and we're going to get to that. Cenk is going to give examples of direct ad hominem attacks that she uses against him. That is workplace harassment. Anywhere else, Francesca would have been fired much, much earlier for what she's engaging in. Because everything she calls Cenk is not just disagreement. She is quite literally harassing him. She is trying to intimidate him. She is trying to bully him. She is launching inappropriate, accusations against him. She is using, derogatory terms or derogatory language against him. Anywhere else, she would have been fired immediately. But of course, online, when it comes to the left, they don't like, when I say I mean the extreme left. And I don't even like using that term because I used to dislike it, but it does exist. The extreme left, so long as they agree with you, they don't care what you did. And this goes back to Emma, right? This goes back to Emma. I'm right, you're wrong. Right? I don't care about the scientific explanation. I don't care about the logical reasons for A, B, and C. If you and I agree on something and we're right and everyone else is wrong, I don't care what you did. You're on my side and I'm going to support you. That's Emma. So when you have someone on the left who quite literally is engaging in workplace harassment, the extreme left is quite literally showing that they support workplace harassment. I mean, what else? Like, what else would you describe it here? They support workplace harassment. If you think that Francesca should not have been fired, you support workplace harassment.
What's a lie? Are what they say about crime stats a lie or not? No, I'm not going to nitpick that. And we get into heated debates from time to time. Me and Ben Glebe.
On like why he's doing it. I think, if you think your brain was broken by the 2024 election, I think we're looking at a case where someone's brain was broken even harder.
Okay, but look, guys, if she had said that about another host, I probably would have drawn the line. It was the tip of the iceberg. The next one.
I do think it's sad that even though they allow people like us into the fold and the fray, they refuse to learn from us or listen to us. And I think that when you have been doing this work for so long and you still cannot grasp the idea of intersectionality, how race and gender and class all intertwine with one another, and how the fascist goal is to divide us.
Intersectionality is the cancer of the left. Let's just be clear about that. Intersectionality is the left's way of trying to show everyone, look how intelligent we are, everyone. Look how smart we are, everyone. Everything is interconnected. Well, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. Intersectionality is also preventing you from passing any legislation. It's also preventing you from winning seats. Intersectionality is the cancer of the left. And as Cenk is going to go on, what kind of arrogance does she have? That because she's talking about Cenk here, that they invite us into the fold, but they refuse to learn anything from us. Who the hell are you that anyone has anything to learn from? People have genuine disagreements. And the idea that they should just toss aside those disagreements because you disagree with them and all of a sudden they're going to learn from your wisdom. Like, who the hell are you? Like, what is this level of arrogance that you have, that you think that you are the fountain of wisdom and that if Cenk disagrees with you, he refuses to listen? So it's this assumption that Cenk and everyone else that disagrees with her, the moment they hear her speak, they need to immediately begin shifting their views. In fact, if they don't shift their views, well, then that's a sin in Francesca's eyes because you're refusing to learn. No. Who are you? You're not a teacher. As I was talking about ethos earlier, you're not someone anyone should learn anything from because you are incapable of making any sort of nuance in your arguments. You're incapable of understanding any nuance in your arguments, and you don't believe in any sort of compromise. You don't believe in any sort of exceptions. You're just a radical who has an ideology that you want to implement no matter how many people's lives it sacrifices. And when I say their lives, I don't literally mean life and death. I'm talking about their opportunities, their dreams, their ambitions, their goals.
Based on these lines, like I don't know like who you are. Like I don't even know if you're smart. You know what I mean? I don't even know. First of all, I don't know who your political mentors are. I don't know who you look up to. I don't know what your touchstones are. I don't know if you know your history in terms of like.
She's calling Cenk stupid, ignorant, a possible sellout, and now she's questioning his I suppose his credentials or his history of academics here.
Civil rights, women's rights, gay rights struggle in this country. I don't know anything. I call into question all of that.
What's interesting to me is, once again, she's trying to tie in women's rights and gay rights to the current struggle that transgenderism or transgender people are going through. We're talking about a massive difference in the population size or in the demographic side. The idea that women who make up about half of society, or slightly more, slightly less, I think it's slightly more actually, of society, and how that can be compared to what I believe is less than 1% of American society. Although that percentage is growing, and I don't think it's growing for legitimate reasons. I think it's growing because transgenderism has become a way that people can seek a sort of identity, among themselves. This is very common for kids who are seeking an identity, and they may jump on the transgender bandwagon because they feel that it distinguishes them somehow. So I don't believe that transgenderism is legitimately growing, because as we've seen, there are many people out there who are very eager to have some sort of platform, or to have something that distinguishes them from others, especially kids as they're finding themselves. But the idea that the women's rights is in any way comparable to transgender issues that make up less than 1% or about 1% of the US population is absurd. Because there's a big section of the population, demographics, and I don't think they're wrong, that thinks transgenderism is in fact a mental illness. Now, I want to be clear. When I say that transgenderism is a mental illness, I don't believe they should be harassed. I understand the left is not going to care about this nuance, right? They're not going to care. I'm just the enemy as soon as I say that. But it's very simple. If you're a transgendered individual, I don't understand how that's any different than someone saying, I'm a wolf, I'm a dog. Like you guys have seen these videos. People are quite literally putting on a dog costume. I think they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on these realistic dog costumes. And they're getting, I don't know if it's their own families or other individuals who are willing to play along to take them on walks. And you should see the way real dogs react. Real dogs are even less accepting of trans dogs, I guess I could call them, than human beings are of trans women or trans men. That's how absurd this is. And you're also seeing people who identify as dragons, and they're quite literally mutilating themselves. There's this video of a guy who identifies as a dragon. He cut off his nose, his ears. He's tattooed in his eyes, so it's all black. He's basically mutilated himself. Any normal human being would look at that and say, this is a mental illness. But the left is very careful about even calling that a mental illness, because if they do, then they're going to be drawing similarities to trans men and trans women. Saying I identify as a dog or a fox or a dragon is a mental illness, then saying I identify as a man or a woman is also a mental illness. And now we're also getting, you guys have heard the story of the woman who identified that she was black. Look, maybe you grew up among the black community, and you grew up culturally black because you grew up maybe in a black country, and that's what it is. You maybe culturally grew up black, but you're not black. Maybe you identify culturally as black, but you're not black. This is like a difference the world knew a long time ago. Yeah, if one person grows up in another country, they may adopt that country's culture, but it doesn't mean that their race or their identity has changed. It means, for example, they're African American, or it means, they're Italian American, or whatever. We have that hyphenated identity to explain this difference, that you're culturally American, but ethnically Italian, as an example. And there's nothing wrong with that. But now it's, no, I'm 100% this thing. Why? Because that's how I feel. If someone said, you know what? If someone came to me and said, you know what? I know for a fact I'm not a dog, but I kind of wish I was because their life was easy, their life is simple, or they go on walks. That's kind of weird, but that's not a mental illness. If someone came to me and said, I know for a fact I'm not a woman, but I kind of wish I was because I have skin issues or whatever, and I would love to be able to wear makeup to cover it, or just I kind of like wearing makeup. I would think, dude, that's kind of odd, but okay. I mean, it is what it is. That's not necessarily a mental illness, right? You just have quirks, or you have interests that I disagree with and I wouldn't want to do. But when they come to you and say, no, I am this thing, that's where the mental illness comes in. Why? Because we can verify that you are not that thing. You're not a dragon. You're not a dog. You're not a fox. You're not a man, and you're not a woman.
It sounds like you are just an opportunistic mouthpiece who wants clicks time and time again.
That is so rich coming from Francesca. That is, oh my God.
Okay, so obviously it's getting deeply personal there. Opportunistic mouthpiece, can't grasp simple concepts, not smart. But guys, and I'm not angry. Look, people have different opinions and they want to make it personal.
In years past, definitely by this new heel turn since Trump's reelection, and absolutely by the misrepresentation of the Los Angeles fires and who the responsibility lies on. It is.
Okay, we're gonna skip ahead just a little bit more again because I want to get to I guess the volcanic eruption, right? That you can see that it's continuously getting, you know, more personal. It's continuously starting to reach the climax. It's escalating, right? So I want to get to, I suppose, the volcanic eruption here. So let's listen.
Believe it or not, she did not stop there. This is now another show. Watch.
So Cenk's line up until this point has been, no, it's at the collegiate level and above. I think once you get to the college level and above, that's when it's bad. So he would be on board with what the NCAA said recently. But you're so dumb. You're so dumb. I don't even know how to explain it to you anymore. Unless, this is the other option, unless you also are a transphobe. You know what I'm saying? Unless you also are kind of a misogynist.
Very quickly, okay, the transphobe line, that's an accusation. It is what it is, right? But where did the misogyny accusation come from? Okay, I guess it's women's sports, etc. He's quite literally saying that men, biological males, should not compete in female sports. How on earth does that make him a misogynist? But here's the thing, and this is why it's important. The misogyny and transphobe for Cenk at least, but the misogyny accusation is probably the most important one for me here. The reason being is because when you're in the public light, for example, Cenk is running a news organization, trying to run an online news organization here. When you're in the public light, and then one of your own workers publicly calls you a misogynist, what are they doing? They're trying to go after your reputation. That's quite literally slander, right? I mean, that's what that is. They're trying to go after your reputation, ultimately after your business. This is someone who is now just launching attacks against you over a disagreement. And Francesca is the perfect example of, and she also called them dumb straight up, but she's the perfect example of why you can't work with lefties. There's no room to work for them there. And this is why they can never build coalitions unless it's with other extreme lefties. They can never build coalitions to build anything. Imagine a lefty ever does one day get to a point where they say, you know what? Climate change has gotten to a point that it's so bad, we need to put everything aside until we solve this. They create a coalition. The second they have a conversation with someone about anything other than climate change and they disagree, they're going to start calling that person dumb, stupid, misogynistic, a sellout, a transphobe, a homophobe, a bigoted, every name in the book that they possibly can. And then that person is going to say, you know what, I don't want to work with you anymore. And then the coalition to support climate change, maybe at a time where it's very critical, is going to fall apart. Why? Because the left cannot control themselves. They have no emotional control whatsoever. They have no emotional maturity. It's social fascism is what it is. And that's what the left is, because they love to call everyone a fascist, right? And ironically, a lot of times they might be right, but it's social fascism. That's what the left engages in. Social fascism. You can't stand being around these people.
Because if you disagree with Francesca or anyone on that part of the spectrum, well, you must be a misogynist. You must be collaborating with the fascists, and obviously you must be unintelligent. Now, if I had called her dumb, I wonder what her reaction would have been. My guess is nuclear, but I didn't call her that because we have a disagreement. We have a political disagreement. You don't need to make it personal. Not done yet. One last one.
What has it got you? What did it get you? When you go and share a stage with Dr. Phil, what did it get you? Nothing. You know why? Because you look like a bitch. You know what I'm saying? You look like a bitch. That's what it is. Like, that's just what it comes down to. You don't look like a fighter. You don't look smart. You look like a bitch.
So again, going back to my place about workplace harassment. She is his employee. They work together. So they're also coworkers. She's calling him a bitch. This is workplace harassment. So if you think she didn't deserve to get fired for this, It means you support workplace harassment, because if Cenk was the one calling her a bitch on his show while she was working for him, everyone would be screaming at the top of his lungs, not only calling him a misogynist, but they'd be saying this workplace harassment. When she does it, it's workplace harassment. But sorry, it's not workplace harassment. The left apparently loves it. But let me just say one thing, because this is what I love about this clip in particular, and it goes to show everything I've been saying about extreme leftists. You look like a bitch. It didn't get you anything. It makes you look weak. She keeps using the word look, because here's the thing about the left, and this is also true about the right, but whatever, but the left, they have their own unique way of doing it. It's all about appearances. It's not about being effective. Cenk's whole argument is, listen, we can't get anything done in an echo chamber. We can't make every single American a Democrat. We can't make every single American, a far leftist or a leftist, whatever. He doesn't even know if we can make if he can make the great majority of them. Maybe you can make around 50, 60% of the max, right? And that's a miracle. 60% would be a miracle. Maybe you can get, a large portion of the population, to start voting Democrat or to be more leftist, but you're not going to get everyone. And because you can't get everyone, it's important that you go on right-leaning shows or right shows. Why? To try and siphon some of their people, to try and show some of their people, hey, listen, we're actually reasonable, because those people are also in their echo chambers and they've heard A, B, and C about people on the left, A, B, and C about the left and leftist policies. And Cenk is trying to go there and he's trying to show that he's reasonable. I remember when Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan, there were tons of comments that honestly, and people were commenting this when on the Joe Rogan podcast, I had no idea. They were saying I had no idea Bernie was this reasonable. He seems way less crazy than, what I've seen on CNN or Fox News, etc. Just by being on the Joe Rogan platform and talking to those people, maybe the majority of them didn't all of a sudden switch over to Bernie's side, but it made them question their own ideas and their own beliefs in who Bernie Sanders was and what he stood for. It made them realize, oh, wait a minute, I misunderstood this guy and his policies. His policies are actually kind of reasonable. So Cenk I think it's the same strategy here when he's going on, Dr. Phil, the Dr. Phil show. He knows that there's going to be a large section of that population, of those viewers rather, who are not going to listen to him, but he's hoping that some of them will listen and think, oh, wait a minute, this guy's actually, his ideas are kind of reasonable. You know what? I kind of agree with them. Sam Cedar is someone who always talks about, how he de-radicalizes people because they watch his show or whatever. Yeah, you got to sometimes go on the other side and argue the point. And as far as you giving them a platform, because the left loves to say we're giving people a platform, you're not giving them anything. You're not the gatekeeper of information. These people already have their own platform, both in, televised media, Fox News, MSNBC, which I think is more right-leaning than left-leaning, but they're already, on the television. They already have plenty of their own online YouTube channels and online shows. You guys are not the gatekeepers of anything. You're a nobody, just like me, Francesca. You have some more views, you have more followers, but just like me, you're a nobody, Francesca. You're not giving a platform to anyone. So the idea that Cenk is going on the Dr. Phil show and that's potentially legitimizing or no, it's ridiculous. You're ignoring the fact that people have their own agency and that if they're listening to someone speak, they can determine for themselves who they agree with and who they disagree with. But it's important that they hear people speak. So if the right-wingers are in their own echo chamber, they need to hear someone come into their echo chamber that disrupts that a little bit. Maybe you don't get it because you're a stupid bitch. Has that occurred to you, Francesca? Maybe you're a stupid bitch. Let's listen.
That's just the reality. I've tried to tell it to you nicely. I've tried to tell it to you cordially. I've tried to tell it to you on your show, on my show.
So once again, this is her going back to her. She's offended. She's offended that Cenk didn't learn from her. She's offended that she's, quote, basically in her mind corrected him several times and he refuses to learn from her. What a narcissistic sociopath who thinks that the way politics works is you tell someone something once or twice, and if they don't agree with you, well, then it means they're refusing to learn, because of course you're the fountain of knowledge, right, Francesca? You're a nobody, Francesca. Going back to ethos, anyone who listens to you speak knows you're not an authority on anything, on any topic. If anything, they shouldn't listen to you because you're a psycho.
On every show. And so either you A, are a bitch, or B, you actually agree with the right. And I'm starting to think, in fact, I do think it's the latter.
If you hate constantly being swarmed by ads, you need to download Pi. It's a free Chrome extension that blocks ads on.
Okay.
I have a question. What's wrong with agreeing with the right on some issues? Like, you understand that human beings are complex and that you don't need to agree with one side versus the other on every single issue that exists. That's factionalism. And if you do agree on one side versus the other on every single issue, then it means that you're a shill. Then it means that you don't actually have an ideology. It's not possible for a human being to 100% agree with one side over the other. If you do, you're either misinformed, you're either uninformed, or you are informed and you're spreading propaganda. It's one or the other. There's no such thing as a human being that fully agrees with one group versus the other. That doesn't exist. Human beings are more complex than that, Francesca, you moron. All right, I'm getting a bit riled up. Look, the reason why I'm insulting her, and the reason why I'm doing it intentionally, is because that's what she's doing, right? And I'm trying, it's my own way of trying to show that, look, it doesn't look good. It's ridiculous when you get there. There are some times when maybe something might slip, but it's uncalled for, it's unnecessary, and you can see just how emotional she is.
So again, if I had called her that would have been a different situation, right? But look, guys, also on the policy or the strategy, when you go talk to the right wingers, first we did that, and I mainly did that, and there was a lot of blowback saying don't ever talk to the right wing, but they won the popular vote. How are we going to win back the voters if we never talk to them? If we don't win them back, we can't ever win an election. And that doesn't mean the far end of MAGA. It means the independents that voted for Trump and maybe some right-wing populists that voted for Trump. Now I've noticed that faction is now saying, well, I mean, of course we should talk to the right, but we should only yell at them or we should only accost them. That seems like a really productive conversation. And now I guarantee you they'll.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here because Cenk is he's gonna more or less repeat, and I think he's gonna say it better than I did about why it's important to reach out to the other side. But now let's just go ahead and watch Francesca's tour. So after this happened, right, Francesca goes, on a tour.
I don't know.
So here's the majority report. They're obviously talking about it. The title, "What the F is Going On at TYT?" Obviously, Sam Cedar is going to start with some. I'm not going to bother watching this video. It's too long, and this video is already getting too long itself. But Sam Cedar is going to start with some ridicule and talk about how they're pushing more to the right, etc., etc. Emma's going to talk about these people are. I used to be a regular watcher of the Majority Report because I think that there are some issues that they're very right on. And again, this goes back to human beings being complex. I can think the majority issue is the Majority Report is completely wrong on this particular issue, while at the same time agreeing that they may be right on other issues. You know why, Francesca? Because I'm a human being and I'm more complex than a dichotomy that is either going to fit in one or the other. Anyways, but they're just gonna make fun of Cenk, but I'm gonna show what Francesca is doing. So Francesca went on the Rational National, and we had a bunch of sellouts on the Rational National from all these different channels, immediately jumping on the bandwagon and supporting Francesca. I'm not gonna bother showing that. Those people are pathetic. They're just trying to get as many views as they possibly can. They're hoping that they can siphon some of the far left views from TYT onto their own channel. Losers, basically, right? But I'm gonna play just a short video of Francesca talking about John Idarola, and I want you to listen carefully to what this little weasel is trying to do here. Let's listen.
Things to say about this relationship, in terms of John, I think it says a lot that he does not feel comfortable saying that this is my show and I would like to book who I book. I've got over 1 million subscribers and many, many members. I make you a lot of money. The least you can do is allow me this. I'm sorry that your Fifi's got hurt, but this is what it is.
So I need you to understand what she's doing, right? Aside from using this yet again as an opportunity to ridicule Cenk by talking, I'm sorry that you got hurt or whatever. She's trying to throw John under the bus here. And this is how disgusting, you know, the average far leftist is, right? This is once again this groupthink, right? That once I decide to cancel you, or once I decide to ridicule you, everyone else needs to do it as well. That's why you had that little panel with the Rational National, and I am just gonna provide a link to that in the description box here, to when Francesca and a bunch of these other leftist channels got together trying to defend Francesca for quite literally workplace harassment. And I think the audio might be bad here, but a bunch of these guys got together for workplace harassment. And what I really want to show, okay, is, you know, that these individuals are all in support. And that's what the left does, right? That's what the far left does. When one of them, or I guess some of them, decide that they're going to attack you, that they're going to go on the attack, that they're going to try and cancel you, they expect the entire movement, or maybe not movement, but all of the other leftist individuals, channels that are on the peripherals, to also support an attack. And that's what the Rational National and these other cockroaches did. Francesca is going after John Idarola for not doing the same. She's throwing him under a bus here. So she is basically saying to John, how dare you not support my workplace harassment? She's ignoring the fact that maybe, you know what, maybe John agrees with Cenk. Maybe John thinks that what she did was inappropriate. Maybe John realizes that as one of Cenk's employees and also as one of his co-workers, that her behavior was inappropriate, and that having her on his show would basically force him to take a side between Cenk, who I'm assuming he has, if he's not friends with, he's been working for a long time with, and they have a good working relationship, and Francesca, who has been engaging in workplace harassment against Cenk. In other words, Francesca, in this situation, Francesca's not the victim. Cenk is the victim. She's the one engaging in workplace harassment. She's the one who rightfully got fired for it. Francesca is angry at John for not assisting her in harassing Cenk and in ridiculing him on his own network. This is a woman who engaged in workplace harassment and is now surprised that she's not allowed on Cenk's network. Like, are you out of your mind? And again, she's throwing John under the bus. Because why? Because he didn't follow her right out the door. Because as all lefties know, it's a monolith. You have to follow each other out the door. Everything she said, she believes the left is a monolith. That's Francesca. And she's throwing John under the bus. She's trying to imply John is also a sellout. Why would John risk potentially getting fired? Why would John risk his relationship with Cenk, that as far as we know is a positive relationship? You can be put in a position where, you know, you have two friends who are in an argument and disagreeing, and say, you know what, listen, I think maybe what you did, Francesca, was the wrong thing, but I'm going to choose to stay friends with both of you, and I'm not going to attack either of you, but etc. So I don't know what John is thinking, but the idea and the disappointment, or the veiled outrage that she has here, that John is going to choose not to get fired when he has his own family, and this is where he works, where he's going to choose not to do the wrong thing and support her in her harassment of Cenk, is incredible. This is a disgusting, sick, pathetic loser who was given a platform and is now using that platform to try and enrich herself, to try and branch off. And what is she doing? She's attacking Cenk, because she knows, because again, this is a calculation, right? She knows that, hey, listen, TYT gave me a platform. They gave me income. Cenk gave her a platform. Cenk gave her income. And now she's making a careerist move here and saying, if I'm going to branch off and do my own thing, I need to attack Cenk. Why? Because that's going to drum up interest in me, and it's going to get people to come to my channel. It's going to get people to hear my side of it. It's going to get people to be curious as to what happened from me, and hopefully they'll subscribe to my channel exclusively. And I'm now going to make my channel anti-TYT channel, in the same way that the Majority Report is becoming an anti-TYT channel. And now she's going to branch off with this other sort of unofficial network of the left that is far more fringe than TYT, but that hates TYT for not falling in line in every single issue that they have. And that's the careerist move that this weasel has decided to make here. She is a disgusting person. She went after Cenk very directly, very inappropriately in workplace harassment, and now she's basically trying to do the same thing to John, but she's just more winking at it here. Because she knows that if she goes after him too directly, people might be a bit turned off by that. Disgusting.